Moms, your girls are going to love the For Girls Like You magazine. It's a Christ-centered magazine for girls ages 8 to 12. It lets them see they are not alone and there are others all around the world who love Jesus. When they read it, they get a break from technology that is fun and entertaining, and they even have a chance to contribute and be a part of the magazine. The pages are filled with stories and creativity from girls, as well as crafts, jokes, and interviews and devotionals to inspire her. You can get your subscription 20% off when you use Gather20 at checkout. You can see the link in our show notes, and let me just tell you, my girls got their copies and are loving them. So check out For Girls Like You magazine. Hey moms, welcome to the Gather Moms podcast. My name is Kate.
And I'm Rebecca. We've created this space just for you because we're both moms and we get you.
Yes, we believe there truly ain't no hood like the motherhood, and we need to be in this together. We also believe we can't mom well without Jesus, so you're going to hear us talk about him too.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Gather Moms, and make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss a single episode.
All right, mamas, let's jump in. Hey mamas. Hey, we're so glad you're here as we kick off another episode of the Gather Moms podcast. Did you notice that I did a different intro?
I did. I thought you weren't going to do it, and then you added a sentence. You didn't just change your inflection.
I wanted
you changed
so bad to say, hey moms, welcome back to the Gather Moms podcast.
Y'all, we're so sorry that we're so self-conscious of this now. I did it. I shouldn't have said anything.
Ingrained. It is just absolutely ingrained. So, hey, welcome back. So this is our last episode in the Mom Struggle series. That does not mean the podcast is over, but this is the last one.
And this is not the last struggle you will ever have.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Want, want.
And get the want ready because this Mom Struggle is
we're ending with the doozy.
It is a real doozy, and this is the struggle of disappointments. Wah, wah, wah. Disappointments are that sinking feeling when something you hoped for and felt like was secure, like it was a lock, unravels. Steve Stroop, I love this. He's our former pastor, and he's written a lot, and he does leadership talks and things. I love his definition of disappointment. He defines it this way. Disappointment is the difference between reality and expectation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Isn't that good? Disappointment is the difference between reality and expectation. Okay, so I want to know from you, do you feel like you're an optimist or a pessimist when it comes to disappointments?
Optimist.
Yeah, you generally think things are going to work out.
Oh, it's all going to work out. It's going to be fine. It's all going to be fine.
And so then when something goes awry.
Here's the thing, though. I think that for everybody else. But when it comes to myself, I have such high expectations for myself that I tend to be disappointed a lot.
Okay.
But not for other people.
Because you were so optimistic of how it was going to work out. And then
Yes. I've gotten a lot more laid back in my life as I've gotten older. I think part of that's child rearing because you see the disappointment from your kids. And so you start to try to manage it. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But I think still in my own life personally, when I think about, I really hope this happens, or I really hope this works out, I have such high expectations for how it's going to be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
That when it's not, I'm like, oh, there we go again.
I think I definitely am that way. I just assume things are going to go right. And I don't know that it's better to assume things are going to go wrong.
No.
I don't think I want to live like a pessimist, but there are, people that are a little bit more that are on the jaded side.
Yes.
And a little bit more glass half empty type thinkers that probably are maybe disappointed less because they think it's going to be.
Yeah, but they're living in a cloud every day because they're on the pessimist. I'd rather be happy and rainbows and then be like, oh, that didn't work out. Okay.
But you know how have you ever had that experience where someone tells you a movie is the best movie they've ever seen. And so you go see it and you're like, because your expectations were so high. And so then you learn to calibrate yourself of I'm not going to get that excited. Don't tell me it's the best movie ever. I need to read some bad reviews or something or know nothing so that when I go into it, I'm not disappointed.
You know one place you're never disappointed?
Wow, where?
Disney World.
Oh man, I feel certain. I thought you were going to say a Mexican food restaurant.
No, it doesn't matter how high your expectations are when you go there. they're going to exceed them.
I feel like that could be true of me if I was the only one at the park.
Well, that would be like heaven.
No, it's all those other people who disappoint me.
No, Disney knows how to do it.
No, I do not want to stand in line.
I'm telling you. And a Disney cruise, if you have high expectations for that, it's going to blow it out of the water.
Really?
Amazing. Yes.
Okay, ma'am, I'm going to push back on this, and you're going to say it's Disneyland, blah, blah, blah. But when we went to Disneyland, 2 bad things happened. Number 1, we got stuck on It's a Small World, where we were in that little raft and near the end and sitting there in that water, and all those little dolls are going, it's a small world after, over and over and over for 25 minutes. We did not move.
Yes.
The other really bad thing that happened was Caroline was really little, so Jeremy took her back to the hotel, and I took the 2 big kids to go watch the fireworks at night. And while we were waiting, we went and did one of the ride. You're on like a big log thing.
Yeah.
You go down this mountain thing. Man, when I tell you, it was California, so it was chilly, and it was 50-something degrees that night. We had just gone down the huge thing and gotten splashed, and the ride stopped working. And we sat there while they were trying to fix the ride and heard the fireworks going off over us and didn't get to see them.
I had something really good for the first one, but I don't have anything positive for the second one.
I am telling you, that is disappointment is the difference between reality and expectation. Because I remember sitting there on that ride and being like, wow, this is a real...
I wish I was back in the room with Caroline.
This was supposed to be magical. Okay, so, but really, I really did have this situation happen to me acutely very recently where I had planned something so specifically, done all the research, I had notes for each. So we just did this big trip to Italy. So Jeremy and I have been married for 20 years. And at our 10-year, we were like,
you look like you're 19.
Oh, thanks.
You're
That's
welcome.
real sweet. So at our 10-year, we were like, what are we going to do for 20?
Listen, there's intentional again, y'all. Ain't nobody thinking about 20-year anniversary on their 10-year anniversary except this intentional person over here, Kate Henderson.
So we said we want to go to Italy and we want to do it big, And so we have been talking about this for 10 years. And so I asked people questions about what parts have you been to? What did you like? Blah, blah, blah. I've researched. When I tell you the number of TikToks I watched on Italy and like tips and which places
China
to go.
has all your information. They knew exactly where you were in Italy at all times.
So in our notes app, I had this collaborative note with Jeremy where it was one folder that said Italy, and then each city that we went to had its own notes folder with like when we were getting there, the train tickets, the Airbnb locations.
Why does he need to know all that stuff?
He doesn't until he starts asking me questions.
And then you refer him back to the notes section.
Because I'm like, bruh, you're going to need to go look before you come asking me questions. Because he will ask so many questions. When is our train leaving? What are our seats? And then he'll ask the same question 25 times. I'm like, you have the same information I do. Go look there first. If it's not there, then you can ask me. This was one of our problems on the trip. Because there were so many questions. So just to say that like we had saved up, we had spent all of this time planning, like we had such
I'm feeling really nervous for
expectations for this trip.
What's about to happen?
So when I tell you we got on our first flight trying to leave DFW and we're sitting on the plane and the pilot comes on and he's like, hey, we have a little bit of a delay. We're having a problem with the weight of the fuel reading right. We've got somebody coming to look at it. We're hoping to get off the ground in a few minutes. We have a 3.5 hour layover at our next connecting. So I'm like, it's no big deal. We'll be fine. So an hour ticks by and we're all sitting on this plane and it's, we're getting updates, but it's like, it's taking longer than expected. 2 hours tick by and I'm like, fine. I'm sitting here reading my book. It'll be fine. Okay. 3 hours tick by and I'm starting to get hot and mad and sweaty because I'm like, now you guys have pushed me to the limit.
Yes. Because I wouldn't want to be stuck on an airplane for 3 hours not going anywhere either.
Friend. And I just felt so terrible for all of the families that had like little babies and little kids.
Yes.
It was
And you were in a middle seat, weren't you?
I was in the middle seat. Jeremy was on the aisle and I had a random girl next to me. Oh wait, it was the other way around. But anyway, the random girl next to me was so sweet. She was English. And she really helped me from going off the ledge, honestly.
You said, just talk to me because your voice alone will help me feel better about my life.
Truly. She was like, we'll sort it or whatever. I don't know.
That was a poor attempt at the English accent. It's all right. You're forgiven. Go on.
So I just remember that 3-hour thing ticking by. And when I tell you, like, it was so frustrating because the issue that they were having was the plane has a fuel weight monitor and it has one reading. The dudes on the ground, part of like the takeoff thing is then they also have a reading where they're seeing what the fuel weighs. The pilot came on and he's like, here's the situation. These two weights are different. Either way, they're very close. And either way, we would have been able to go there and come back with the amount of fuel, whichever reading it is.
Right.
But the FFA will not let us take off until those things match exactly. They had to get some technician from his home to drive in that was not on shift to come and be able to fix this.
No.
Which is what made me so hot because I'm like, friends, train your people to do their job. You know what I mean?
Have you seen all the air stuff going on lately?
There is so much.
I don't know. I feel like I want everybody to match. I just want it all to feel good about what we do in here. So I'm just saying.
Well, and I'm sitting there and thinking like these people, like, this is why people lose it on an airplane.
Oh, you're not going to be one of those.
No, but you feel it. Like, I love Jesus.
You said I have compassion for the people being escorted off the plane for losing their minds on the flight attendants.
So much more. Because when I tell you, friend, we sat there for 4 hours. 4 hours.
No.
So that meant we missed every connecting flight after that. And this is an international trip.
Yes.
I became the worst version of myself as I'm chatting with the Delta agent on my app where I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Can we see, can you post those text messages in our Gather Social so that we can feel like we were there with you in the moment?
By the grace of God, we were able to get booked on the next flight. And so, but a lot of people weren't.
Yeah.
So when we got, so it was strange kind of how our connectings were, but we went to Detroit. And so we had 3 hours in Detroit and then we got on the next flight.
You were just flying from Dallas to Detroit first?
And I'm like, how long does it take to drive
you're not
there?
even getting to Paris yet. You're just like, I just got to Detroit.
Detroit, what a letdown. Because then we had an 8-hour flight to Paris and then our little flight from Paris to Florence is really quick. But yes, so we get to the Detroit airport and we're like, okay, listen, we're about to be on this overnight flight. We're both just like, I don't know, in a bad spot. Let's go get a really good dinner. Like, what is the best restaurant this airport has to offer?
In the airport?
But in the airport. Okay. What is the best? You know what I mean? Like, let's not do Einstein.
Chili's?
Okay. Let's not do Einstein bagels. Let's not do McDonald's. Like, what might be really good? Okay. And thankfully, Delta had given us food vouchers.
Good for you, Delta.
Okay.
Nice.
Oh, and you know, I called those people and made them give me vouchers for our flight, too.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
I caused a stir.
Good for you.
Okay. So we're like, there's a Longhorn Steakhouse. Let's go get a good meal. And then we're just going to get on this flight and go to sleep.
Go to sleep. Okay.
All right.
I'm nervous.
So we eat a steak, potatoes, a salad. We feel good. We go to get on our flight. I put my compression socks on.
I do have a picture of that. Might have been the greatest moment of my life. Yes. Thank you, Jeremy, for the video. Good job. Good job.
I went and washed my face. Everybody was like, what is in that bag she's carrying to the bathroom? I was washing my face before we got on this overnight flight.
I agree.
So anyway, we get on our plane. We're about an hour and a half in or so. Thankfully, that plane took off fine. We're about an hour and a half into the flight. I'm starting to snooze because I take sleeping pills on the plane. I have on an eye mask.
I said, if the plane's going down, I will not know it till I see Jesus.
I'll see. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the next thing I need to see. So I've got myself all set up here. We only have 2 people in our aisle, so I'm laid down, this. And, there were 4 seats and there were only 3 of us. And the way it was, Jeremy and I had 3 seats to ourselves.
Okay.
So I'm able to lay
Stretch
across
out,
2.
yes.
So I'm falling asleep. Jeremy starts bumping me. And he's like, Kate, I've got to get to the bathroom. I'm like, oh, barely awake. Kate, I got to get to the bathroom. I'm not moving fast enough for him. That man climbs over me to get to the potty.
I thought you said he was going to go in his pants.
I don't know when he came back, but I remember opening my eyes and looking at him being like, are you okay? And he's like, I'm not right.
The steak?
Okay. So I'm like, okay. So I go back to sleep. I wake up at some point and I feel hot. I feel hot all over. I don't know what's going on. My stomach is not right. But ma'am, I've taken these sleeping pills. So I try and stand up. I see a stewardess and I'm like, do you have snacks? She said, yes, they're at the back of the plane. Because it's an international flight. They have like a snack station. You can just go grab something. So I start trying to walk to the back of the plane. It's dark. It's, because everybody's asleep on the plane. I start walking and I feel this heat come over me.
You're about to throw up.
You know that feeling?
Yes.
When you're about to throw up?
Oh, yes.
This heat just comes over my body. And I walk to the back of the plane and I lose energy. I sit down on like the cold floor.
Yes.
In the galley where near the bathrooms. And I'm like, okay, this is really, I'm about to get very sick. When I tell you, like, if you have a weak stomach, fast forward the next minute and a half, I go into the potty and I have the big D. Okay. And it is bad. And it is just angry.
Yes.
And I'm doing that. And then I realize, it's about to come up the top side now. And I have to throw up.
In that tiny little bathroom.
In this tiny, disgusting airplane bathroom where I've just been doing other bad things in this one hole that I'm going to have to switch over to so that I can vomit. And I have on these green leggings. Like, I don't even have on black leggings where if like if I had an accident on myself, I was really concerned that while I'm throwing up, something's going to come out the other side. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It was very, very, very bad. So I get all of this out of me. It's just the smells, everything.
Like the door's not holding it in. I have to believe that smell has now exited the small bathroom. And if you're sitting in the back row, welcome to Disney World.
I was so out of it. This man that came in behind me, because he had been waiting.
No.
Yes.
Did you say no, sir? Don't.
I did not have the presence of mind to tell him. And I was also so ashamed. But I had been in there for like 25 minutes, Rebecca. He should have known to not
Go
enter.
to a different one, sir.
Once I finished getting it all out of my body, when I tell you, I use that soap and that little bitty sink that's like 6 inches wide
Over your entire body.
to clean I'm cleaning my arms.
Yes.
Because, I'd had my
You've touched
arms
it all. Yes. Yes.
And I get out of that potty and I go sit back down on that cold floor in this galley. Now this man,
You stayed around to watch him go in there?
I cannot walk. I am weak. There is nothing left in my intestines. So
Longhorn Steakhouse, what did you do? Did you call them and get some vouchers too?
I'm sitting on this cold, dirty airplane floor and I'm like, this is disappointment. This is when reality meets expectation and you have planned for 10 years this holiday in Italy.
By the sea.
Yes. You have spent all this money and here I am. One flight was delayed 4 hours and now I have just spilled my guts on the second flight. And what is next? It was just absolute darkness.
Did somebody stop to offer help? Did the stewardess say, ma'am, are you okay?
No, thankfully, no. And thankfully I didn't interact with any other human beings because when I tell you I was drugged on sleeping medicine and I had just, thrown my guts up and it's like 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was not in a good state of mind. I will say the one blessing, how good you sleep after you just thrown everything up because your body's exhausted?
Yes.
Okay, that was the one blessing because then I crawled basically back to my seat and lay down and I slept for 4 or 5 hours.
And then you woke up and you were like, Jeremy, it happened to me too.
And he didn't fully get it. And then we had to run to our next flight in Paris and then we get into Florence. And because of that 3-hour delay, I had planned for us to be able to get into our Airbnb, put our stuff down, eat lunch, and then we were going to see the David at this museum. And you have to buy tickets and have a pass and everything. So we didn't have time. We ran through our stuff at the Airbnb and then walked as fast as we could back to make it to this gallery on time, and we made it. But that meant that I had not eaten or had
changed
anything,
clothes.
Ma'am, for
You have the same underwear on.
For 24 hours. For 24 hours.
I think that's appropriate with Naked David, don't you? I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, I was a gross human. But when I tell you, that was a long story. I hope everybody's still with us.
Honestly, I think people love our stories, so we're going to hear about this one.
But
you're going to see people in Target and they're going to be like, hey, let me tell you about the time that I threw up on a flight too. You're going to get it over the next weeks.
But the disappointment and then the fear I had of oh no, what if the whole trip is a disaster?
Like this. Yeah.
What if this is the beginning and the whole thing is like that? That is disappointment. And I was just texting a friend, my sweet friend Allison, they bought this new beautiful home and they got a good deal on it because it had had some water damage from,
no.
Yes. So they gut the master bathroom that's upstairs, and they put in this beautiful new master bathroom and everything, and it had all the pipes fixed and stuff. And then she was out of town, and her husband called her, and he said, I don't know how to tell you this, but water is leaking from the upstairs into the living room. And when you talk about disappointment, like this thing that they had spent months remodeling, they'd spent all this money on, and now it is flooding again. I mean, there's just disappointments.
Yes.
You know, these things that we plan for and hope for, and it's just like,
this isn't fair.
So frustrating. It's so frustrating. The truth is things just will fall apart and not go according to plan. And I saw hilariously a TikTok after we got home, and this man was talking about travel, and he said, you need to anticipate that 12 things will go wrong. And I thought that was so good.
Did you count yours up?
Ma'am, we had at least 12.
Okay.
But they were all small but I felt like, honestly, the 4-hour flight should count for 4 because that's 4.
I mean, I feel like that's maybe taking some leeway there, but okay.
Having to reschedule all the flights, that's another one. And then throwing up and diarrhea on a plane should at least count for 5.
I'll give you 5 for that. I will give you extra for that. Yes, ma'am.
But, disappointments hurt. We hurt, and our children get disappointed, and they hurt. Those things just hurt. But I feel like the speed at which we're able to recover from those disappointments and even heal, because some disappointments are not temporary like mine was,
right,
or temporary like my friend Allison's was. Some disappointments are like life-altering, life-shattering disappointments. But the speed at which we're able to recover and heal depends so much on what we're basing our expectations on and how realistic they are. So let's talk about that. The truth is the majority of our disappointments come from unrealistic expectations.
They do.
That we put on ourselves, our family, our friends, our circumstances.
Yes.
So let's talk specifically just about a few maybe unrealistic expectations we have as moms. Like, I think as moms, we have a foolish, unrealistic expectation that if we tell our kids they're supposed to keep their rooms clean, that they're going to do it.
I gave up on that a long time ago. Best advice I ever got from a mature mom was close their door.
Yeah. Okay. I think I have an expectation that when I put their food down in front of them, that they're going to say thank you.
Yeah.
Now that is
my expectation is that they are like, oh my gosh, Mom, this was so amazing. I know you spent 4 hours. You took time to thaw this meat, cook this meat. You cut those onions by hand. I mean, my expectations are pretty high for the meal.
Okay, so it might be unrealistic.
Definitely unrealistic. Yes.
I think we have an expectation that they're going to make good grades.
Yes.
And it can be really disappointing when they struggle or they don't make good grades. I think we have a unrealistic expectation that they're going to make good choices.
Yes. Yes. Did you not understand that was a poor choice? If all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you?
But we're surprised by their bad choices, I think, because it's like, oh, and it's so disappointing. You're like so let down when they make the choice, but it's unrealistic to think they won't. And then I think as wives, we have some unrealistic expectations for our husbands. I think we continue, even though we know this is unrealistic, we still think that they're going to be mind readers.
Yes.
And
because after 20 years, how do you not know what's in my head now? I mean, really?
Yeah. But, even just like with Mother's Day just happening, there are probably moms who are like, yes, I had unrealistic expectations.
Oh, my heart goes out to you right now, moms. The disappointment.
For how that was going to go.
Yes.
And it did not go as I wanted, but that we remember that disappointment comes when our expectations meet our reality. So we have to think about what are those expectations and are they unrealistic? What do you think feeds unrealistic expectations?
I mean, some of it I just think is that when we personally go out of our way for other people to make it great for them, we assume that other people will go out of their way to make it great for us.
Yeah.
So when you think about your kid's birthday, I mean, I'm planning, I'm prepping, I'm buying, even at the last minute, I'm going all out. So when you don't feel like that's reciprocated, part of it's just like, but that's how I treat you. Why don't you treat me that way?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we have, a lot of us have like some kind of narrative in our mind of how our lives are supposed to go, how things are supposed to go, how families are supposed to work, how friends are supposed to work, that just may be some subconscious that we picked up from a TV show. We picked up from what we saw of someone else's life we've kind of written some script in our mind that we may not even be aware of. And so then when we see that script get disrupted, we're like, oh, wait, why is this not working out how it's supposed to work out in my mind? I think one of the huge ones that sets us up for unrealistic expectations is assuming that people know what you want or how you feel. Like, doesn't that get you into so much trouble, especially when it comes to like Mother's Day?
Yes.
Just assuming that, you know, your kids and your spouse know exactly what you want for Mother's Day. That they know that you want 3 pancakes with strawberries and coffee with this kind of creamer. And no, they don't know. They don't know that you wanted them to take you out to breakfast instead of giving you breakfast in bed, because you wanted breakfast in bed last year. But this year you had it in your mind that they were going to take you to breakfast. But ma'am, you never told anybody that.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. We have the right to change our mind. We just forget to tell people around us that we did change our mind.
Yes. And I feel like that is probably what causes probably the most fights, or just like disgruntledness between my husband and I, is he'll do something and I'm like, well, wait, why are you doing that? And he's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, well, I thought we were going to involve. He's like, well, that's fine, but you never told me that, ma'am.
Yes.
I would have been happy to do it that way, but there was never any communication there.
Yes.
And vice versa. It happens the same way, you know, on the other side.
Or when you have told them and they're like, you told me that? You're like, yes, I did actually. Do you remember this conversation? And they forget. Do you know what I forget too?
Yes.
So Grace.
Well, and so then just the unrealistic expectation that they're going to remember what you said.
Yep.
You know, and so we set our hopes in that. I think too that the other thing that causes unrealistic expectations is that we forget that we are not promised a disappointment-free life.
Right.
We're actually promised the opposite. I mean, Jesus says it in John 16:33. He said, I have said these things to you, that in me you have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, or translated trouble. Like he says, there will be trouble. But he has this great news, because he says, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And I love this scripture from 2 Corinthians 4:16-18, because it says, so we do not lose heart, which is disappointment, right?
Yes.
Discouragement. So we do not lose heart. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. And so, you know, that God is working in something and we don't have to lose heart. He is up to something. So I think for some of us listening to this thing about disappointment, it may be hitting harder for some than others, because you, mama, may be in a season of disappointment where you are going through something where you're like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't plan for this. This goes against everything that I wanted. And here I am sitting in this reality that I didn't ask for.
Right.
And you're feeling disappointed. And if you are there, I want you to know that you are not alone. The Bible is filled. It was hard for me to even pick one character for us to focus on, because the Bible is filled with stories of people who were disappointed.
Yes.
I thought about David. You know, David was anointed king by Samuel, but then instead of being able to become king, he was hunted by Saul in the wilderness for years and years, you know, before he ever got to become king. I thought of the family of Mary and Martha and Lazarus, who, you know, Mary and Martha asked Jesus to come and heal their brother, and Lazarus died. And I just can imagine the disappointment of Mary and Martha, who knew Jesus could do it.
Right, exactly. Knowing that miracle is right there, but he didn't come in time.
Yes, because he had healed another little girl. So there was another story of disappointment related to that, where a man had sent for Jesus to come and heal his little girl who was sick. And as Jesus is walking there, they say, you don't need to come, she's dead. And just the disappointment they must have felt when they had reached out to the healer, and then there's no, it doesn't feel like there's help coming.
Right.
But we know that then he said, oh no, she's just sleeping. And he raised that little baby up. I think about Hannah, who begged God for a child and just lived in a season of disappointment for so long.
So long, yes.
Until God answered the desire of her heart. So I just want to say to you, if you are living in a season of disappointment, you are not alone. What I can say from every one of those stories is that God was working a better reality than the one that they were expecting. Our command from God is not to understand. There will be things that happen that we're just not going to get. It is not going to make sense to us. Our expectations are not met, and we feel disappointed. But our command is to trust him. Psalm 42:11 says, "Why are you cast down, O my soul, and why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God." See, the thing is, we're always going to be disappointed when we set our expectations on things this side of heaven to work out perfectly or to make us happy or to deliver something that they just cannot.
That's right.
They just cannot. And so we're going to be disappointed if we're looking for those things to meet something that they don't. And I really will tell you that, for me, sitting on that plane, first of all, going through that 4-hour experience, and then once we landed in Paris and stuff, I really had a chance for God to work on my heart and just kind of resubmit the trip back to him and remember that no matter how it went, he was with us, he was still good, and everything was going to work out. It just may not work out according to the plan that I had made. And so there are some realistic expectations that we can have in this life based on who our God is and what he says. Those are the things that we can bank on and build our foundation on. So one of them is Romans 8:28, where it says that God is working to bring about good. We can trust in that. It says, we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. And so if you're sitting in a season of disappointment where your expectations are not meeting your reality, you can know that this feels bad, but God is working for good. And you can trust that he's doing that.
Well, and sometimes our expectation of what good is are so far below what God says good is.
Yeah.
That when he finally brings about that good, just like he promises, it will exceed your expectation.
Yeah.
You will be able to look back and go, that was better than what I asked for.
Agree.
But we set our sights too low because the earth has sold us a bill of what great and good and happy is. And God's like, I've got way better than that. If you'll just let me bring about my good, it's going to exceed your expectations.
That's right. I love what the psalmist says in Psalm 27:13-14. He says, "I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord and the land of the living. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage, and wait for the Lord." We know he's working. We know he's going to deliver. And we can also have the realistic expectation that God will give us peace in it. Philippians 4:6-7 says, "Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." We can also have the realistic expectation that he's going to supply everything we need in whatever reality we're living in. Because it says that in Philippians 4:19, "And my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus." And this is the last scripture I want to read to you, because this is from Isaiah 40:28-31. And I feel like this is someone who has known disappointment, but has also seen God show up with strength and power and help. And this is what it says. "Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not grow faint or weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Even youth shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint." Disappointments can lead us to discouragement, and it can feel like God has forgotten us, like he's punishing us, like he isn't listening to our cries. That's never true. He is always working, and it's just like you said, we may not understand it. This verse even said his understanding is unsearchable. Mm-hmm. We may not know what he's doing, but what we can know is that he is at work. The Bible promises us that, and that he's going to sustain us and provide everything we need in this season of disappointment. And, I mentioned the story of Lazarus earlier, and we talked about how disappointed Mary and Martha must have been because it didn't happen in their way and on their timetable. But that doesn't mean God had given up on them. What we actually find in that story, what's really neat is that when he raises Lazarus from the dead, it's actually the week before Jesus dies on the cross. And so he hears that Lazarus is sick. He stays where he is, and he in his omniscience lets Lazarus die. And by the time he gets to Mary and Martha's house, all of these mourners have gathered. There's this huge crowd of people that are there that would not have been there if Jesus would have just shown up when Lazarus was sick. And so Jesus gets there when this huge crowd is there, and Mary runs out to him and she falls down, and he weeps because of her sadness. And then he goes to the tomb and he has Lazarus come out of that tomb alive. And my goodness, if he had made the choice to just answer the expectation of Mary and Martha to just show up and heal Lazarus when he was sick, that would have been good. And he would have healed a guy, and, he loved that family, and that would have been like a good thing. But oh my goodness, they had no idea what to even expect of Jesus when he then showed up, when all this crowd of people was there, and he was able to not only heal someone, but heal them completely, bring them back from the dead in front of all of these people. And then what that did for their souls, for him to in that moment let them see that he did have the power to bring somebody back from the dead, so that when he died a week later, they knew he could do it. Like, just think about their disappointment in that moment was based on a, expectation that they had, but God had something so much better in store. And so I just want to say to you, Mama, we will face disappointments this side of heaven. Like, it's just a reality. It's just a reality. That doesn't mean that we need to live with a pessimistic lens. It just means that as those disappointments happen, we just look to God and we say, okay, I don't get this, but I know you've got it. And we trust him that he is working things for our good. And we ask him to provide for us in those moments of disappointment, the things that we can't provide for ourselves.
And just like in that story with Lazarus, Mary and Martha were able to let their disappointment be a testimony to more than just their family, but to all those people that had come to mourn with them.
Yeah.
We have no idea what our disappointments are speaking to the world around us, or when God does show up and goes beyond expectation, what the world gets to see.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. Okay. All right, mamas, we love you, and we hope that you have a great week with little to disappointment. But when they do come, that you're not surprised and you just ask God for help. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.